Well, it's been a particularly busy theater season for me, where I've seen over 30 performances, including theater, opera, music, and dance, as well as visual art exhibitions. This is Reno Lovison, executive producer at Chicago Broadcasting Network, where we aim to present audio and video programs related to things going on in Chicago and stories about Chicago. Those familiar with my theater reviews may have noticed that in addition to information about a particular production, I like to give further information about the history of the play itself, and maybe some insight into its deeper meaning or message. I avoid spoilers, but I attempt to give some backstory that might make the review interesting to those outside of Chicago and others who may not have an opportunity to see the show locally, but might want to know something of what it's about. Additionally, I try to give some parking and travel information as well as ideas about places to eat nearby. At our website and podcast, you'll find other stories about people, events, and history. I avoid one-off events because they happen so quickly, and I feel people aren't interested so much in things that have happened already and that they'll be unable to experience for themselves. I have a deep interest in Chicago history and hope to delve a little deeper into this topic in 2026. I'll be curious to see if you share my enthusiasm, and I welcome your feedback. My relationship with ChicagoTheaterandArts.com continues, as my reviews are published there as well, though I like to add a bit more to my podcast version. Over the past few years at ChicagoTheaterandArts.com, Jody Jacobs and I have shared some retrospective comments at the end of the year. I don't like to think of theater performances as a competition, so instead of the best, I'm going to offer my favorites from this past year's reviews. So here goes. Number 1, A Rock But Funny at Looking Glass, was my pick for favorite individual performer and favorite comedy. In this historically insightful play, playwright-performer Astra Azdu recalls the history of the Assyrian people through this semi-autobiographical story of 5 generations of the women in her family. Azdu herself takes on the persona of a ridiculous, uniformed, pith hat-wearing, mustachioed British Army officer who, in stand-up comedy style, acts as narrator. Coke Candy's production of Amelie, the musical, in September was my favorite musical, an extravaganza of a dozen singer-musicians performing a dizzying array of Parisian characters to tell a sweet boy-meets-girl tale. Number 3 was the Goodman Theater's tragic, hilarious, loud, energetic, fun, and heartwarming production of The Color Purple as my favorite musical revival of the year. My favorite drama goes to Tom and Eliza at Tuda Theater in August. This is a play I keep thinking about. A brilliant example of absurdist theater, beautifully performed, that focuses on ideas of existentialism with an attitude of absurd realism, where playwright Celine Song shows us the arbitrary and bizarre trajectory of life and relationships. Galileo by Bertolt Brecht about the politically tormented astronomer at Trapdoor Theater certainly deserves an honorable mention. Number 5, my favorite theater production company is Invictus, where I enjoyed The Winter's Tale and House That Will Not Stand. There were several companies where I only reviewed one play this year, but Invictus was chosen from among 8 theater companies where I reviewed 2 or more plays in 2025. My favorite costume designer is Rachel Shipinievsky, who worked on Annie, Jekyll and Hyde, Amelie, Galileo, and more. Her thoughtful approach, attention to detail, and impeccable tailoring bring life to the characters and, in historical context, help in setting the time period. At number 7, there were a number of set designs that I liked for various reasons, but for providing the right mood in terms of time and place, the luxurious and lush set designs of Kevin Hagen for Hedda Gabler, presented by Artistic Home at the Den Theater, was my favorite. Diminishing concentric panels that framed the space lent a sense of claustrophobia that enhanced Hedda's feeling of being trapped. The repetitive nature initially made me think of a house of mirrors that gives you an uneasy feeling of infinite sameness and unknown escape. Chicago has so much to offer, and I hope you'll continue to look at ChicagoBroadcastingNetwork.com for commentary and insight about what's going on in the Windy City. The best way to stay informed is to be sure to take a second right now to subscribe at our website, at YouTube, or wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. Giving us a like or thumbs up helps the internet gods to know that you think this is interesting and informative content. Keep in mind, if you're a Bank of America customer, you're rewarded with free admission to the Art Institute on the first weekend of every month. Be aware that you may have to pay an additional fee for special exhibits, but it's still a good deal. I want to take a moment to thank my wife, Julie Lovison, for helping with music when needed to augment a podcast. Julie is director of the Lakeshore Music Studio, providing piano lessons for children and adults in the Gold Coast Old Town Lincoln Park area. For more information, visit lakeshoremusicstudio.com. Thanks to Stephen Solomon as well for the use of Foster Avenue Beach as our sometimes theme song. I also want to give a shout out to Mark and Sarah Mosley, co-directors of the Windy City Winds and All Winds Community Orchestra that gives 2 concerts a year at St. Paul's UCC Church near Fullerton and Lincoln, as well as several performances in other venues around the city. I've been video recording their performances for about 10 years, which we now live stream as well. For information, look for the interview we did a few years ago here at Chicago Broadcasting Network and visit windycitywinds.com to find a schedule of upcoming concerts. Finally, if you're a James Bond fan or love spy movies, be sure to tune in to fellow Chicago podcasters Dan and Tom at spymovienavigator.com or look for Cracking the Code of Spy Movies wherever you like to listen to podcasts. This is Reno Lovison, executive producer at ChicagoBroadcastingNetwork.com. As always, if you need help with marketing or video production for your business or organization, check out renoweb.net.
Yes, I took it to me.